Welcome to the Mass Appeal podcast. Our mission is to empower both aspiring and seasoned real estate investors with the knowledge and tools needed for success. Each episode, we engage with leading experts on health, wealth, and investment strategies. Now, let's meet your host, Renee Masse. With over 30 years as an entrepreneur and 10 as a realtor, Renee brings a wealth of experience in real estate investing, specializing in multifamily properties, student rentals, and land optimization strategies. Join him as he speaks with industry experts and shares practical tips to help you navigate the real estate landscape.
Other one as well. Sounds good. So, hello, Stefanie. Thank you for taking the time. This is great. Nice to meet you, Stefanie. I hear you're doing something amazing with real estate investors and service providers that are somewhat linked with real estate. For those who may not know you, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So Stefanie Beharry, nice to meet you. I am a CPA, a real estate investor. I'm a mom, a wife, and essentially I walked away from my corporate finance job earlier this year, and I've started a brand new business in the real estate investing space. I've opened up an accounting firm, and I specialize in bookkeeping and fractional CFO services for real estate investors.
That's amazing. So tell me how you got started.
Sure, yeah. So it was a burning desire while I was on maternity leave to just create something for myself to kind of redefine that purpose in my life. And so I decided to marry two passions, one being a real estate investor and the other being, financial literacy and financial management.
Mhm.
CPA, obviously, I was already in finance, but I have always really been very close to just financial literacy, and it was something that I noticed was lacking in the real estate community.
How did that begin? Was that at school, from your parents? I mean, these are things that aren't taught in school
Yeah.
often. So,
And so I've been super grateful that my parents were the ones that started it all. My dad is also an accountant. My mom is a banker. So I've always said that finance has always been a part of my life. It was discussed at the kitchen table, just like everything else. And so I've naturally been drawn to it myself, hence why I also became an accountant. And then also I just noticed that just with how our society is set up, I always felt like I needed to diversify and protect different sources of income and not put all my eggs in one basket with my 9 to 5 corporate job.
okay.
I've always had that desire on the side to create something for myself, to invest. I started investing at a young age as well, and then got into real estate and saw its power.
Now,
And
were
really, there
your
was
parents involved in real estate as well, or did they say, "Wait a sec,
no, not
no"?
at all. They were your typical first generation immigrants, very safe, played it safe. You get your education, you get a good job, and you stick with that company forever. And so they were in
Okay.
that mindset. And
So
so I
what did you buy first?
so I waited because of their philosophies, and
Yes.
I was an only child, so I very much did listen to my parents. They made me nervous to go into real estate investing on my own. And so I did wait. And up until the point that I did invest, I invested mostly in stocks. And then when I met
What did they say? Like, what were their perspectives on real estate?
they thought it was a good idea. They also bought a house and they could see the equity that they were gaining there. And, they knew it was a good investment vehicle, but they were nervous for me to invest on my own. And I guess, especially as a woman, there's hesitations around, in my culture around, can a woman do this on their own?
Oh, really?
So it was a little bit, they kind of imposed a little bit of hesitancy in me. But then once I met my husband and I kind of showed that burning desire to him, he kind of was like, well, let's do this. And
He was
so
on board, or
he was on board. Yes, he was on
nice.
board. I don't think he realized how much he was going to get into this.
It's a
um,
casual conversation for him, but for you, it was very
yes,
serious.
I just needed that yes to get started. And so once we got
And the
started,
support, I'm sure the support also helps.
yes, the support and also just him being on board with the same vision of creating something more outside of our job.
Nice.
So we did get into real estate with our first family home, but quickly I realized that this could snowball to much more. And so we had bought a pre-development house. I already saw the equity that we were gaining there. And so I decided we were going to flip it. So we did, some value add renovations, and we flipped it and then had our sights on another house. And so that house then became our introduction to house hacking. I decided I wanted a property that had a secondary unit.
Yep.
We made a basement apartment there, and we started house hacking. And so
Cool.
that's kind of how things snowballed. I always created opportunities in real estate to kind of supplement our lives. So when I felt like, hey, we needed more income for daycare, we needed more, I don't know, if we wanted a different opportunity to live somewhere else. Well, how can we make this an investment? How can we make this just efficient for us? And so I've always used real estate as that key.
So at what point did you buy your first investment? And then you say a few years down the road, you quit your 9 to 5. Like, how did that go about? Can you give us a bit of a storyline?
Sure. So right after we got married, or in the process of getting married, is when we bought that first property, the pre-development property, which we only ended up living in for maybe 4 months. We did the renovations, we flipped, we grabbed that equity and put it into a second property, which is the one that we purposely bought that had a secondary unit, like separated. We then renovated that and got a tenant in there. So we started with the house hacking. And then we had our first daughter. And so, we were busy with being parents. And that
Congratulations. That's a huge step.
Thank you. It didn't stop me then, though. The dreamer in me still had all these ideas. And so my next idea was that this was during COVID, and I was feeling very claustrophobic where we were living. So my next thing that I wanted was an acreage property. And I called it a generational property. I wanted something that like we could live in, that we could then pass down.
Cool.
And so I proposed the idea to my husband to buy an acreage property with my parents. So that was a little bit of a hard convincing
that's a big leap.
that I had to do.
Where about is this acreage? Where?
It's in Caledon.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I was able to convince everyone. And so this is another now form of house hacking, because we bought a bungalow, and my husband and I and the kids now live in the upper unit, and my parents live in the lower unit. And essentially we're able to split all the expenses 50-50, and then also keep our other properties at the same time. So again,
Neat.
this was my imagination just going wild. And
I'm sure your parents are very happy because they see obviously your child growing every day. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so since then we've had a second child. So I have my son now. And that's when I went back to work between the two maternity leaves, is when I really had that aha moment of this is not for me anymore. This corporate job is not for me. I had zero connection with it. I felt it like I was just going through the motions and sort of wasting my time and the company's time, really, because I had no connection with it anymore. And I knew that I had another purpose. Especially kids do that to you. They make you reevaluate everything in life. And
you have so much less time, so time becomes very precious.
Yes. And also because I knew I was setting the example of this is what life should be like. And life shouldn't be about just going through the motions just for the sake of it. That you should be connected with what you do every day, and you should have a purpose and a reason of why you wake up, and
of course,
legacy that you leave behind. And so I was like, I have to.
And what better way than simply expressing that to children than actually doing it?
Exactly.
That is huge, because they'll see that. They'll see it, they'll believe it, they'll see it with their parents, and they're more likely to do it themselves as well.
Exactly. And that was the whole main reason behind it. Also because my corporate job was just very time consuming. I worked a lot of long hours and I wasn't seeing my family. So again, it was like, this is not the life I want to live.
Okay.
So I then went back to, well, what are my passions? What am I amazing at? And how can I serve people?
Sorry to interrupt you there. At what point did you have the thought of quitting? and you actually did it. Because a lot of people have that thought and it lingers on for years and years. And often they need a catalyst. I know people who they went on, they moved on from their 9 to 5 because they got
Yeah.
laid off. It seemed like COVID was a great catalyst for a lot of people. They
Yeah.
were at home. So at what point did you actually have that thought and you actually did it?
So it wasn't automatic. I had that thought when I returned after my daughter,
Yep.
but I thought it was because I needed a new challenge. So, I put up my hand for opportunities. I asked to be progressed. I got promotions. I moved to different departments, and I did all the things thinking it would solve the problem.
Hmm.
And ultimately, it did not. And it even got to the point where they offered me another promotion, and I ended up declining it because I was just like, I don't think this is going to solve the root issue that's
Yeah.
happening
I,
here.
I had a friend who they would offer him more money. So he'd
Yes.
stay. And he's like, well, this isn't really it.
Yeah.
They're trying to keep him on there as much as possible.
Exactly. So that's kind of what was happening. And at that time I was pregnant with my son, my
Hmm.
second child. And I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna go on this maternity leave and just free my head of all of this and see what I come up with. Like if I use this time, and it's amazing that in Canada we get the time. So I took the 18 months and I was like, I'm gonna obviously, be a mom, but I'm gonna use this time to also explore what I truly want to do. And if I can get something up and running before I go back, I'm just not gonna go back. And
Cool.
so that's ultimately what I did is while I was off, I was being a mom and I was building a business. And I was like, if I prove that to myself, I can get clients and I can prove that this service is valuable and people will pay for it. I'm just not going to go back. And so the December before I was supposed to return in January, I landed a big client. And that to me was a sign from the universe that go for it.
That's
And
neat.
so I just
So
ended in that resignation and I never looked back.
congratulations. That's awesome. That's good to hear because
Thanks.
I hear a lot of people who want to do this, but they're stuck somehow. So how did you go about being unstuck or lead to it? Or how did you start the business and eventually said, this is it. I'm never turning back. How did that go about? Can
So
you
a
give
couple
us
of
an
things.
idea of the steps? Did you create something first or?
So I definitely dug deep within myself first.
Mhm.
So I did a lot of journaling. Did a lot of activities around, what you're passionate about, how you feel you can serve the world, and like trying to like bring those two ideas to cut together, and what is a need in an industry that you like. And so I did a lot of soul searching, if you want to call it.
Good, good.
The second thing I did was I hired a coach. And so I found a coach
A
through that
business
soul
coach
search,
or a life coach or?
a
Okay.
business coach. And through that soul searching, I did come up with the idea of bookkeeping. So I did come up with the idea of bookkeeping in real estate, the real estate investing industry, because I did feel like there was a great lack in the industry in financial knowledge and financial awareness. And so I thought I could solve that problem. And so I hired a coach that had a business and they were a bookkeeper as well. And they did have real estate clients. So I thought, okay, I'll start working with this coach. And, they helped to really solidify what I really wanted to do. Because through that whole conversation, I ended up coming out with the fractional CFO
What does that mean
idea.
exactly?
And so that basically means is that just like how a large corporation has a CFO, which is a chief financial
Mhm.
officer, a chief level position, and that executive handles the whole finance component of the business. A fractional CFO is basically a CFO that works on a part-time basis for small and medium-sized companies. So essentially, you're able to get that strategic guidance and strategy, but at a fraction of the cost because it's very
Interesting.
hard for a small or medium-sized business to afford a full-time CFO.
Are you ready to supercharge your real estate investments? You're in the right place. Many listeners of the Mass Appeal podcast might not know this, but Rene Mass is a licensed realtor with Rockstar Real Estate and a key player on the Buy-in Kingston team. With decades of experience and a diverse portfolio of satisfied clients, the Buy-in Kingston team is dedicated to helping investors like you succeed. They provide a comprehensive, full-service suite of solutions tailored for investors, designed to maximize your cash flow and enhance your return on investment. Ready to unlock your next cash flow opportunity? Book a discovery call at buyinkingston.com today, and let's start building your real estate empire together.
And so that's essentially what I used to do in my corporate life. I was in financial planning and analytics. So I was like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to take all my knowledge from what I used to do in corporate. I'm going to bring it directly to the real estate investors and make that accessible to them.
That's cool. So at what point did you start the business, have your soul searching, writing a few things down, working with the coach, and then at what point did you get that first client?
So then I would say maybe 6 months after I got that first client, and I started off doing bookkeeping because I was like, okay, I'm going to take what I can get at the beginning, get some experience, and then kind of work my way up. So I did start with the bookkeeping, and then I started to kind of snowball and get some more people that were interested in the fractional CFO services. And so that kind of, just snowballed from there. And I guess the third piece that really helped me take the leap was just getting really clear on my own finances. And I think that's a component that maybe a lot of people do miss or feel like they can't make the leap because they don't know where they are in terms of their finances. And so
That's very important. It's something that's often
is.
overlooked because it's so basic. Everyone seems to want that financial freedom or living on the beach and whatever, but they don't do the basics of figuring out how much money's coming in or how much money's coming out, which seems so basic.
Exactly. Yes. And so I went deep on that as well because I wanted to know how much did I really need to bring in order for me to supplement, my obligations at home, and how much do I need for my investments for the future? Like, where are my investments and my retirement plan? And so I dug really deep on all of that to kind of give myself the clarity to say, can I actually do this? And when I did that, I actually realized I was more further ahead than I had thought. And so all that anxiety that I had almost went away because I was like, I proved to myself the data and the numbers proved that
So
I could
you were
do it.
you were delving into the numbers to see how much, like, can you give us some details on it? Like some
Yeah,
numbers?
so one, I looked at my retirement planning. So within my retirement planning, I looked at my nest egg that I was saving since I was 18 years old and investing
Cool.
early and really front loading all those investments like crazy. And I used a compound calculator and I did some projections to understand, okay, if I actually didn't invest anything else from now and I stopped right now, what would my nest egg look like, when I'm ready to retire? And is that enough for me and my standard of living? And so I looked at that and I would basically determine that I actually don't need to invest anymore. So that was a great feeling that it's
That's
actually
awesome.
Coast Fire, if you've heard of it, meaning
Coast Fire? What's that?
yeah, so Coast Fire is a term that people use in the financial independence community. And so FIRE stands for financial independence to retire early.
Oh, yes, yes.
And coast means that you're not quite at FIRE, but you're just going to sit back and coast and let compound interest take you there. So I
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
basically,
yeah. I've heard the fire term, but I've never combined
yeah.
it with coast. So you can just coast your way into it.
Yeah, so they have different types of fire. So if you go down the fire rabbit hole, you'll see all different types of fire. So I determined that I was actually at Coast Fire and I could actually sit back and not have to worry about investing anymore. And I could just focus on building my business and making sure that I can make ends meet and contribute to my family. And if I make extra, then of course I could, invest more or I can go on trips or I could do whatever. So the first component was getting clear on my investments. And then the second component was getting clear on my budget and how much do I need at the end of the day in order to contribute to my family, which means how many clients do I have to have, what price point do I have to charge, and basically what packages do I have to offer in order to hit that goal to feel comfortable that I'm going to be able to, pay my bills at the end of the month.
That's
Right.
cool. So just breaking down the numbers and then you put it in a book or did you put it on a wall? Like what happened? What did you do
Spreadsheet,
after
of
that?
course, a spreadsheet.
A spreadsheet. Yes.
Yes, accountants, we love spreadsheets. We live in spreadsheets. So I have a spreadsheet for all of these things. And so ultimately giving myself that financial clarity was what helped me to really say at the end of the day, like I quit because I figured out that I can do this and that I've hit some of those milestones and that I could make it happen.
Were there people thinking that they thought maybe you'd go back? Because when I quit teaching,
Mhm.
even 5 years later, people would go, hey, you're going to go back to it. You're going to go back to it. I never did. But
Honestly, no one's really made that comment to me. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because,
well, what about what about it's usually people who are still in the 9 to 5, because
yeah.
sometimes often entrepreneurs, they hang around with other entrepreneurs. It's hard to
Mhm.
hang around with people who are 9 to 5 because they different
Yes.
lifestyle, different mentality on things.
Yeah. So I think the people that I was really close with at my 9 to 5 knew me so well that they
Mm,
knew that I would end up here.
okay.
Because I knew myself the first day that I started in that corporate job that I wasn't going to last, that I just knew that this wasn't my destiny. It was something I was passing through and that I would get experience and it would be
Hmm.
great for those things, but that wasn't ultimately what I was supposed to do. And
How long
so
did you stay?
I stayed for 10 years.
Okay. Yeah. That's
And
substantial.
yeah, and I mean, there was 2 maternity leaves in there, but ultimately at that point, I felt like I got all the experience that I kind of needed in order to
Hmm.
then offer it as a service. And so I think the people that I knew kind of expected this from me.
So what kind of clients do you typically help? I mean, what are their issues? What are the problems or the pain points that trigger to go, listen, Stephanie, I need your help?
So it's interesting because what I just explained to you of what I went through is actually what my clients go through.
Oh, really?
It's needing to make these big decisions, but not having the clarity to know if they can do certain things. And so my actual experience, my life experience, I'm able to actually
That's
use
amazing.
and help clients with. And so that's the number one thing is that, you have your finances, but you don't really know what they say. You don't know what the numbers say. You don't know what you're doing well, what you're not doing well. Can you make certain decisions? And basically, where are you going? And so I help answer all of those questions and make your finances crystal clear to you so that you can confidently go and make those decisions and level up your business and increase your profit and stabilize your cash flow and
That's
do all
pretty
of
cool. That's
that.
pretty cool. So are there categories? I imagine there's retirement, there's investments, there's the day-to-day,
So
there's
I do it more in a business sense. And
okay.
so this is my services are ideal for real estate investors that have active businesses that are a little bit larger because they have a lot going on. Either they have a larger portfolio where
Mhm.
they're holding properties, either they have, or they have like an active business on the side, like coaching, or they're
It can
mortgage.
get messy. Exactly. It can get
Yeah.
messy.
And
As you
so
build, it gets messy because you got a lot of
exactly.
components. Yes.
Exactly. And so these type of investors need more than just your average bookkeeping. It's not enough for them. They need to have that advisory component, and that's where the
Mm.
fractional CFO services come in, because I'm the one that will then manage the bookkeeper, make sure that everything is, accounted for there, but then also do one step further where I'm able to break down your full numbers for you, give you the insights that you need, the takeaways, the actions that I think you should take, and then ultimately help you to start looking ahead. So, doing some forecasting so we can be one step ahead of your cash flow and be more proactive instead of reactive. And, these are the people that are growing and they're growing fast. And so, in that growth, they need the additional support. They need budgeting. They need a financial partner to help make them make those decisions. And so that's where I come in.
That sounds very valuable. It seems as if the 10 years you worked in the corporate world, you're
Mhm.
helping the small business owners
Exactly.
just thrive. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
Where,
that's where the purpose comes in,
yep.
right? Because you're really able to feel like you're making a difference in these people's lives and that what they've worked so hard to build, you're helping them keep, right? Because ultimately, if they don't have that financial management, they're at risk
Mhm.
for potentially losing those assets or going under, right? And so that's where
So,
the
so
purpose.
how many properties would they potentially have, or doors, or like it's not just a couple how investment properties. We're not talking
Yeah.
about three. We're talking about
Yeah, so I have different levels of service. And so I would say my ideal clients are typically the ones that have an annual revenue that's a little bit larger. So you think about like more than 250K, kind of even closer to 500K. If
mhm.
you're at a million, you definitely need me. So
Yes.
they're larger in size, and so that's where I'm able to help with the bookkeeping as well as the fractional CFO services. I do sometimes help smaller clients as well. They would typically be more on a bookkeeping only package because at that time, that's essentially only what they need. I do always sprinkle in a little CFO services there for them to make sure that they're still getting the answers they need and understand their numbers. So that's typically how I structure it. Depending on your size or scale, then I can adjust my services accordingly.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Any other so what is this going to look like in about 5, 10 years or so? Like what's the long-term vision?
Yeah, the long-term vision is I would love to actually build out my accounting firm a little bit more. I am currently serving Canada and the US, and so I did go cross-border earlier than I anticipated,
Cool.
but
Oh, so
um,
that was always the plan to go to across border.
I actually didn't have a plan to go cross-border, but I actually had clients, people or prospective clients reaching out to me. So it's been really interesting because I actually have found out that Americans are actually more on board with fractional CFO services than Canadians. I think the term and the title of fractional CFO is more well known there. So they actually reach out to me. They find me on the internet and
By
they reach
just typing
out
in
for services.
fractional CFO.
Yes, they are looking for fractional CFOs and they are looking for someone that has real estate experience. So those come together well for me because I've niched down into that area. And so I actually started serving clients in the US way earlier than I thought because they were finding me and wanting my services. So I've built out a bookkeeping team on the US side. I have a bookkeeping team on the Canadian side. And so I would love to continue to expand more on both sides. I do hope the Canadians do catch up a bit because I'm definitely expanding faster on the US side. Um, and I hope to kind of continue to expand my team so I am able to serve more real estate investors and really kind of change the industry a little bit around financial management because I think that every investor should be investing in that area of their business. It's extremely important. And so I want to continue to drill that home and be able to provide that service to
Do you
investors of
provide
all. Yeah.
webinars or insight for those who need more insight on your services?
Yeah, so on my website, I have different levels of services. I have some downloadables available for people who just want to kind of do it themselves. So I have some spreadsheets available, some courses available, and opportunities to just book some time with me. That's for people who are still managing it themselves, but also still want some support. I also do what I call a business checkups. So those are
Hmm.
kind of like a consultation where people can bring me their finances and I'll take a look and then provide some of those actionable takeaways of, this looks like it went well, this doesn't look so good. Maybe take a look at this, some actions to kind of help them improve their financial position. And then I have my ongoing services. And so those are for the people that want to engage on in bookkeeping or fractional CFO services. And I have different packages for those folks.
That's pretty cool. And we'll have a link in your website because I saw it. It was very well put together as well.
Thank you.
At what point do these investors become developers? Or are you working with developers or investors or people they have their, is it just is their real estate portfolio just a side gig or?
Well, investors come in all shapes and sizes, and
Yes,
that's
they
the
do.
beauty of it is that when I niche down in the real estate investing industry, some people did say, "Oh, well, that's such a narrow niche." And I personally don't think so because I think real estate investors can be so many different things. I have clients that are buy and holds where they have rental portfolios and they manage it. I have investors that are also coaches, and so they have a
Mm.
service side of their business. Then there's other real estate investors that have businesses within the real estate investing community as
Like
well, like
management or Airbnb, there's a
yes,
wide range.
and or even realtors and
Oh yeah.
mortgage brokers, and so those folks that are supporting real estate investors as well. So it really, I feel like it's very broad, and I can support many different types of businesses. Ultimately, it comes down to the fact that I have the acumen of the industry, and that is quite unique because not every bookkeeper or finance person knows the real estate investing space, and it is very unique. And
Mhm.
so you don't get that knowledge from everyone. And so
You,
I think that's
it's
a great drive.
exactly, exactly it. It is very unique because I do speak with a lot of
Yeah.
accountants or bookkeepers. If they don't know real estate, we've got to kind of teach them from the
Yes,
start on what it is. It's a whole different mindset. So I
right.
definitely agree. And finding the right accountant is very important as well.
Exactly. So I
Um,
try and remove that for people by, having me being an accountant already and then having that experience, that I break down that barrier for you, right?
cool. And doing taxes in states, Canada, you must have you must have learned a lot about how different is it?
So tax is one area that I stay completely out of.
Got it.
Um, so me as an accountant, my experience has been in the planning component and the strategy and the advisory. And so I stay in my lane, and that is where my specialty is.
Yes.
I will tell real estate investors to have a separate tax accountant. And I do have a list of tax accountants that I know and I worked with and I trust, because they are also in the real estate community, that I can refer out to.
Mhm.
So I do that both in Canada and as well in the US, even more in the US, because the US
In the
obviously
US, well,
has its
like
rules.
where in the US? Like it's a vast country. Is there certain locations or it's anywhere?
That I serve currently.
Yes.
So currently I'm in three states, clients in three states: Pennsylvania, San Diego or California,
Yeah.
and Atlanta. So those
Wow.
three,
And they all
yeah,
found you through just the website or
they,
through
or
social media.
social media.
Yes.
Yeah, actually one client found me through a hashtag.
That's
So that's
amazing.
pretty crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Way to
Yeah.
hashtags. Yeah, way to go on that one.
I
That's
know,
amazing.
right?
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. And for those, I like your story about quitting your job and because it was a lot of people talk about it, but it seems like you had more of a step by step. It was thoughtful. So for
Mhm.
those who have the thought of doing so, what would be
Mhm.
the 5 steps before quitting your job and moving on to something that is passionate? What would you suggest for them, the
Yeah.
5 steps?
Yeah, so I actually just wrote my newsletter on this just the
Oh,
other day.
really?
Um,
I didn't see on your website, no, but I have looked at a few articles
okay.
that you wrote.
Yeah. So number one is getting crystal clear on your finances. That is obviously one step that I would not miss at all. You need to know where you are in order to determine the steps you need to take to get to where you want to go, right? And so that to me is one step. The next step is doing that soul searching, right? Because each
Mm.
individual person will have their own unique thing that they want to bring to the world and for it to be their legacy, right? And what is that for you?
We
And
all have a gift. It's a question of
yes,
finding it and then giving it. Yes.
yeah. And so a good book that I really like is called Ikigai. It's a
Oh
Japanese
yeah.
book, and it
Yeah.
talks about like bringing together your love with your passions and your service for the world and finding that like winning combination, because when you find that winning combination, that's ultimately where you feel like you're not working anymore, right? It's part of everyday life. And I feel like we should always live life like that, right?
Yes.
That's the second part. And then I would say the third part is finding mentors, surrounding yourself with the community, right? Either finding a coach, finding mentors, immersing yourself with other entrepreneurs, because they think differently and they are different. And so you need to kind of be with the people you want to be like, right? Surround
Mhm.
yourself in that network,
Support
and
is
just
very
feed off
important.
of them. Yeah, and you just get so much information and so much support and so much help and tips from those type of people. It's something that you'll do now and you'll do all throughout your like owning your business. And so I would say those are the top three for me.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's really good. And the book, going back to the book, you said you read the book called Ikigai,
Yes.
which is Japanese for the 4 components. What are the 4 components again?
I don't remember the four components exactly, but it is the concept is that you're bringing to it's a Japanese word, and it means like bringing together your purpose, the way you can serve in the world, and just everything like and the needs, I guess the needs as well,
Yeah,
of what the industry needs, and just bringing all of those together to come up with an idea or a business or your purpose. And so the book is all about like defining your purpose.
that's
So
pretty cool.
it might be a good one for someone feeling stuck or someone feeling lost, just reading that.
Cool. Any
Yeah.
other questions that I might not have asked you? What else?
Um, I would just say, I don't know when this specific episode is going to air, but I would just say now is a great time. I know we're in the end of November, heading to the end of the year. As an accountant, I would say now is a great time to get your book in order. Now that tax season is coming up. And so, your bookkeeping needs to be up to date and you have to have your documentation ready. And so, this is a
Yes,
friendly reminder that
a friendly reminder. Get on
great
top of
time
those
to
books.
start
Yeah.
doing that. Yes, that. And don't forget that heading into a new year, there's a new component to that as well. Not only should you be closing off your previous year, but you should be looking ahead to the next year, looking at your goals, doing some of your forecasting and budgeting. And if you're doing those things, you're going to be setting yourself up for some great success next year. So,
Love it.
tips.
Very
Yeah.
well put. Very wise. You definitely have a lot of skills in the financial. I love it, from the corporate to the small business entrepreneur. That's amazing.
Thank you.
And thank you for taking the time, Stefanie.
Yeah,
That was
no
great. That was a
problem.
really good. And we'll definitely have to talk again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Mass Appeal podcast. Hope you found today's episode insightful. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback will help us reach more inspiring investors. And remember, every step you take towards any goals brings you closer to better health, greater wealth, and a more fulfilled life. So I encourage you to take action and apply the insights you've gained today. Until next time, I'm Renee Masse, encouraging you to stay curious, keep grinding, and invest wisely. See you in the next episode.